Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Cauchy. I'm the Executive Director for Automotive Grade Linux. It's a pleasure to welcome everyone this week to our virtual all-member meeting for the first AMM of 2021. And I'm happy to report that we have excellent attendance this week. We have over 50 companies that are attending the event from over 17 countries. And given that this event was originally planned to be in Tokyo in person, we are holding this event primarily on the Japan time zone. So this event, of course, starts at 9 a.m. Japan time. But even with the difficult time, I'm glad to report that we have excellent attendance from other regions. 30% of attendees are from the EU and 22% are from the Americas, despite the very late time for people in North and South America. And as you can see, we have a great representation of countries here for this event. So welcome everyone, and I'm glad you're here. I'd like to start by announcing that and welcoming Amazon AWS and announcing that they have joined at the AGL Platinum level. And Amazon AWS will be joining the AGL Advisory Board. So we're extremely proud to have them on board, and we hope to see them certainly lead some of the efforts around vehicle to cloud and participate in those areas of AGL. So please help me in welcoming Amazon AWS. But we have some other news. Nissan has also joined AGL as of January 1st. Nissan is also joining the ELISA project. And as a reminder, ELISA is working on functional safety for Linux. This includes industrial applications, things like aviation, but also automotive. And so AGL obviously is playing a big role at ELISA. And Nissan is also joining that project. So we're glad to see that. And we're also proud to announce that SoftBank just joined AGL. In fact, they just joined yesterday. And they're also interested in vehicle to cloud and cloud solutions. So we certainly hope that with Amazon AWS and now SoftBank, that the entire vehicle to cloud area will be a significant growth area and an interesting area for AGL development in the coming years. But that's not all. We would like to welcome several other members, new members that have joined since our last AMM, namely L4B Software, Cebros, ACAS, Sonatus, Total Cross, AVL, Telechips, and Cytos. So we'd like to welcome all of them. They have a very varied background, from virtualization to real-time software to software services and support, and also tier one type of capabilities. So we welcome all of our new members. So back at the AMM in July, I gave an update on COVID, and we mentioned that it was, very challenging times. It was, the beginning of COVID, if you will, and the automotive industry had been impacted, and we were unsure about the future and what impact it might have on AGL. At the time, I said that the impact was pretty minor. In fact, it was business as usual for us. So I'd like to give you an update on this, and I'm really glad to report that AGL is still very healthy, and COVID so far has had very minimal impact on our day-to-day business and the health of the project. And so we're really, really happy to report that, given that COVID-19 has been obviously a very serious situation for the entire world. But for AGL, it's been business as usual. The AGL UCB progress has been unaffected. I'll talk about the upcoming releases. AGL and Linux Foundation support staff have always worked from home, so this is not any big change for us. And the development has all been done remotely. So again, really minor to no impact on AGL and the community. And in terms of membership, As I mentioned already, Amazon AWS has joined at platinum level. Nissan and SoftBank join AGL. Unfortunately, it pains me to announce that Ford dropped out of AGL. I think based on media reports that we've seen that it's pretty clear that Ford has decided to adopt an Android strategy. So hopefully we can see them come back maybe for other work that we're doing, like instrument cluster and other areas that might interest them. We did add about a dozen new members since COVID began. So I would say it's been fairly business as usual in terms of the membership activity. In terms of events, obviously all the AMMs have been virtual. We had to cancel our CES 2021 attendance. That was obvious. The entire event became virtual, and given the nature of our attendance, which is to show demos, it really wasn't feasible. But we do plan to attend CES 2022, and I will discuss that a bit later in the presentation. All of our developer sessions and conference calls are virtual, as you would expect. And I have to say, I think people are a little tired of virtual events. It was a bit of a challenge to get people to submit CFPs, and people are in need of getting back together. And there's a certain thing about events, which is the hallway conversations and the connections that you make with people that certainly can't be replicated in a virtual event. So we understand and we appreciate your support, and we appreciate you joining us for this virtual event this week. And I and the entire AGL team, we certainly cannot wait to return to in-person event. And I'll talk about that a bit later. I'd like to change gears and talk about some of the major announcements we're seeing on a daily to weekly basis. And that is a major industry trend where there's a massive investment in software being done by the OEMs and the tier one. There's no doubt this has been happening over the last several years, but it seems to be just a huge growth in the last year, where you constantly see these announcements of Volkswagen, Daimler, Toyota, BMW, and others, many others, that are all deciding to make a significant investment in software. And so what does that mean for AGL? Well, many OEMs are building their own platform. That seems to be obvious. And a lot of them are choosing to leverage open source and AGL in order to really take ownership of the platform and make it their own over a multi-year segment, meaning this is an investment for 10 plus years. It's very analogous, I like to say, for example, what iOS has done for Apple devices, right? Apple has invested long-term in iOS, and they now use it on all their devices. And now it's starting to creep into, MacBooks. A lot of the same functionality is now creeping into those platforms. Well, I think the automotive industry is at a similar point where we're going to see these long-term investments into a platform that can be used for generations of vehicles in order to add services, add consumer services, and add value, and so that the OEM also can monetize this. And so this trend is clear, and AGL is absolutely perfectly positioned to be at the center of this trend. So why do I say that? Well, if you look at the way AGL is built and some of the benefits. So let's take, for example, control of the platform. AGL is not under the control of any single company. It is a collaborative effort by 10 OEMs and over 150 automotive ecosystem companies. The platform is free to use, free to be modified, free to make your own, free to be customized. This is perfect for these companies that have announced that they're planning to build this their own platform and their own service offerings for multi-generations. And AGL is perfect for that in terms of this open platform that is malleable and really can be modified to an OEM's needs. What about data ownership? Well, AGL all of the data generated by consumers, location-based services, where they go, where they shop, things like that is really up to the OEM. AGL owns nothing. We we don't participate in that that area of the business. So again, AGL is perfect platform to build those types of services where the OEM controls and owns the data. What about flexibility? Well, I already mentioned, AGL is fully customizable, so you get 60 to 70% of the starting point of a system like infotainment or instrument cluster in the vehicle. And the other 30, 40%, you can fully customize, add your own UI, branding, look and feel, and really make it your own platform. And again, that's why AGL is perfectly positioned for this trend. What about beyond IVI? Well, AGL already has solutions for instrument cluster and telematics, and we're also working on functional safety so that it can be used in other applications in the vehicle. So really, an investment in AGL can be an investment in the entire cockpit software solution. And consolidating those things on a single software base really, really makes sense. And not only does it make sense for reusability and cost savings, but it also makes sense for long-term support of this platform, because a lot of the shared software and shared modules and shared open source components get bug fixes, get security fixes, and so on, and they can be, shared by the entire cockpit solution, whether you're using it in IVI or instrument cluster or some other function in the vehicle. What about regulatory? Well, there's no issues as far as we know that this project is fully, as you know, open source, nonprofit, has no licensing in terms of fees or anything like that. Obviously companies using AGL need to abide by the software licenses in the code, but that's customary, and everyone is becoming very adept at doing that and following open source license requirements. And we have, of course, attorneys that are well versed in this and can handle those things for the industry. What about functional safety? Well, again, AGL is, like I mentioned, is working with ELISA project, working to get safety critical certifications. Specifically, our instrument cluster project will be the first one to go down this path. That is being led by Suzuki, which is, of course, an OEM. So we like to see OEMs leading these types of efforts. What about longevity? Well, AGL has been around since 2012, and we have a massive ecosystem of over 150 companies with major OEMs, major tier ones, almost all of the semiconductor providers to the automotive industry, and a slew of dozens of security and services companies and cloud companies and navigation companies, speech recognition companies, and so on. So this ecosystem is here to stay for a long time. And the more cars that get deployed with AGL eventually means that, the longer AGL will be around. So there's absolutely no issue in terms of longevity. What about operating in China? And the reason I bring this up is because it is a concern for some services. AGL has no restrictions in using AGL in China or anywhere in the world. And that's a very positive thing, given that the China market for automobiles is quite substantial. What about virtualization? Well, we've been working on virtualization for several years. We've actually demonstrated virtualized solutions of running IVI and instrument cluster side by side on the same processor, for example, as one use case. But lately, we've also made a big investment in Vert.io, and that effort is being led by Panasonic. And this entire virtualization effort really brings a whole slew of new possibilities to AGL, such as the consolidation of functions for cost savings, but also the consolidation of functions for simpler management and simpler deployment of software. So to summarize, really, AGL is perfectly positioned for this industry trend. We're right at the center of it. OEMs are building their own service platforms, their own service delivery platforms. That includes, not just the software in the car, but of course, connectivity to the cloud and all of the services they'd like to offer. And to be frank, it's very difficult to do this unless you own and manage that software base end to end. And so AGL fits perfectly in that model. And frankly, if you watch the media, there's, Android, of course, gets a lot of attention because Android is a popular mobile phone platform. And AGL doesn't have, frankly, doesn't have the marketing budget that Google does. But nonetheless, not every OEM is going to adopt Android. That is very clear now, very clear, especially in the past year with these announcements that OEMs are building their own platforms. It's more clear than ever that AGL is so well positioned to be part of this trend. And of course, some OEMs have announced they're adopting Android. That's fine. There's a lot of room in this industry for multiple solutions. And we think, of course, AGL is the best. Let's switch gears and talk about what are some of the priorities we've been discussing at the AGL Advisory Board. Well, at a very high level, of course, we want to complete the instrument cluster work. This is a very high priority project for AGL, and the progress has been great. And of course, that a sub function or a sub work item on that is to work with ELISA and make sure that we bring our solutions to a functional safety certification ready standard. We're going to continue to focus on the production ready IVI profile that is being led by Toyota. Toyota has contributed a whole bunch of code in the past 6 to 12 months. And this code is really, potentially could be the foundation of this AGL service platform. And so we're really proud to see OEMs step up and do this kind of work. And so we're continuing to support that, and it becomes an increasing focus for 2021. We're going to continue focusing on virtualization, as I mentioned, and specifically Vert.io. We think this is really exciting work for consolidation of the cockpit. We're going to increase our focus on V2C, vehicle to cloud, and cloud connectivity. With AWS and SoftBank joining, we really are hoping to get their leadership in this area and really help us along to build a compelling solution that can be used by these OEMs to provide cloud connectivity and value-added consumer features. Part of our stretch goals is we'd like to get additional board support in AGL. And for example, Qualcomm boards and maybe other vendors as well. One of the other stretch goals is we'd like to use the AGL reference hardware for our CES 2022 demo. So in case you're not familiar, AGL, we have a reference hardware system architecture expert group. We've produced our own hardware that was designed and paid for by AGL. And this hardware has now been manufactured and is, AGL is ready to be used on it. And so we really hope to be able to showcase this at CES 2022. So that's one of our stretch goals as well. In terms of another upcoming activity, last year we kicked off this thing called the steering committee ranking process. So what that means is our fiscal year at AGL starts March 1st, in case you didn't know. So we just started our fiscal year 2021. So this is when the budgets get approved and the priorities for the year, the features we're going to work on all get decided in the month of March and early April. And so that feature ranking process is getting kicked off at the steering committee meeting on March 24th, which is next week. And this is an example of the work that was done last year. So what that means is we basically, each expert group bubbles up their feature requests. They all go into the steering committee, and the steering committee ranks them based on each steering committee member and what they think is the most important. And then we work on the most important ones, the ones that are deemed most important for AGL. And so that process kicks off next week. So we look forward to sharing more detail. A lot of this is published on the AGL wiki. So if you're interested in following along, you can always go there. So as you know, we name our releases after fish. We think this is a nice, fun thing. My colleague, Walt Miner, is the naming guru. And as you can see, we've had interesting names over the years. But the key point of this chart is that we've been doing 2 releases year over year since 2016. And we're really proud of that because we've kept to this schedule of 2 releases a year. They can vary on the exact release date because of the content. Could be bigger in some releases than others, but nonetheless, we've pretty much kept to this cadence, and we're really proud of that. And we're proud to announce that we just released UCB 11.0, codenamed Cookie Koi, which was released February 17th, just about a month ago. So that release, all the details, release notes, etc., can be found on the wiki. And the moment you've all been waiting for, we like to announce these. My colleague Walt Miner has come up with the names for the next 2 releases. So UCB 12 will be named Lucky Lamprey. So if you're like me, I actually had to look up what a lamprey was. And it's pretty ugly. So that Lucky Lamprey will be released July 2021. That's the current plan. And UCB 13 will be codenamed Magic Marlin. And the release for that will be in around Q1, early Q1 2022. So pretty cool names, I think. Well done, Walt. In terms of the schedule, Lucky Lamprey, the development has already started on this, and the schedule is for release in July. And Magic Marlin is scheduled to start development around the September timeframe. For the latest roadmap and schedule, you can always find it on the wiki at the URL that I posted here at the bottom. And you can, of course, if you have any questions, reach out to the mailing list or to Walt Miner or myself directly. If you're new to AGL, we also have several expert groups that are very active that have weekly conference calls or conference calls every 2 weeks, depending on the expert group. And as I mentioned earlier, some of the most active areas are things like instrument cluster, virtualization, and we expect vehicle to cloud to become even more active with AWS and SoftBank joining. We really expect that area to pick up quite a bit. So if you're new to AGL, please check out the expert groups. You can check out the wiki and join the weekly conference calls. Our next AMM is planned for Berlin. Originally was planned for July, but that seemed impossible. So we pushed it out to September, October timeframe. And the reality is we don't know. I mean, we probably will have to convert this to a virtual event. We're kind of waiting for guidance from the Linux Foundation events team. The Linux Foundation events team is monitoring the situation very carefully. We have experts in this area, and they're planning to make a recommendation in the coming weeks as to whether events in September, October are possible. So please stay tuned. Any changes we're going to be announcing on the mailing list, the member mailing list. Similar situation for Automotive Linux Summit. This is currently planned for in-person in early December in Tokyo or Yokohama. The final venue has not been chosen. This will be an in-person meeting. This has a much greater chance of occurring in person. And again, Linux Foundation events team will provide more detail in the coming weeks. And you can always check the status at the URL that I've included down below. And yet another event is CES 2022. We certainly hope to be able to attend in person this year. Again, it will depend on the event planning, and they will let us know, of course. We plan to have about 16 demo kiosks for members, very similar format to previous years. So the sponsorship prospectus will be issued in April. So stay tuned for that announcement. We will be sending that to the members mailing list. Members are expected to apply for a demo kiosk, meaning they need to describe the demo that they plan to show, how AGL is used in the demo, whether it's a software or a service, multiple ways to show this. And then, we will be having a selection process and announcing who will be participating. So please, keep an eye out for this, and we'll be announcing it on the AGL-members mailing list. One more thing about CS. I meant to show actually the floor plan. So we have this booth here, as you can see, AGL, right next to analog devices. But if you look around a little bit further, you can see that we have Nissan, Fiat, Chrysler, Hyundai, Daimler. We have Amazon, we have Google, Hyundai, General Motors, Toyota, and Audi, and I'm missing several others. So we're definitely in the center of the automotive technology area. This will be the first time that we've been so close to all the other automotive companies. So we're really hoping that this will go through this year. So I'd like to conclude by reusing a chart that I showed at the last AMM. My outlook with the COVID uncertainty, I said that AGL's future looks bright. And I'm really, really, happy to announce that really, I think that AGL's future is even brighter than it was 6-7 months ago. COVID has really not affected the day-to-day operations. And with the recent trends in the industry of automotive companies wanting to, build and own their own software platforms, we're right at the middle of this trend, and we're perfectly positioned to take advantage of this in terms of making AGL the platform it was meant to be, which is this customizable, reusable, multi-year platform for these OEMs that is ubiquitous across the industry. And so really, I do believe that AGL's future looks even brighter than it did a year ago. And that's a testament to, the great people that are working on AGL and the great people that are contributing to AGL to make it such a successful project. So I want to thank everyone in the community, and I want to thank everyone that is attending the virtual AMM this week. I know virtual events are getting to be a bit of a drag, but I hope nonetheless that you will enjoy the content, and that we will see you hopefully in person later this year. So thanks everyone, and please enjoy the show. Thanks, bye.